Alrighty, everybody. We're gonna be primarily focusing on the shoulders and the lower back today. My client is saying that her left shoulder is bothering her some, and her lower right back kind of QL or glute area has been kind of bothersome lately. So we're just going to treat that today. I'm gonna maybe do like a 45-minute, hour session today. Nothing crazy, just gonna walk you through some of the process, some of the thoughts, findings, and things like that. Usually I like to rub my hands a little aggressively at first. It kind of generates some heat so my hands don't feel so cold on their body. Kind of create like a little triangle shape. Start off with a nice, big, broad effleurage running down the back, guiding my thumbs down the rectors. Once I kind of reach the top of the pelvis, right in the kind of SI joint region, I kind of just hold that for 10, 15 seconds. You can ask them to take a couple deep breaths here. Good, one more. A little extra pressure on the right SI joint here. Good. Nice big return stroke over the scapulas. Compressions over the arms. Notice I'm just moving nice and slow. This is still the first stroke. Taking my time. Palpating at the same time. Finish over the neck. Nice big traction right on the occiput. Hold that for 5 to 10 seconds. Use your fingertips here. Really pull back, get in there. Good. And okay. It's the first stroke. Rinse and repeat. Really want to vary the speed. Make sure you cover everything over the glutes, going over the lats. Make sure to push that lubricant into the triceps, forearms. Good. Always finish with traction at the neck. Perfect. Okay, we're going to do some alternating effleurage here. One of my favorite things to do is kind of bend the fingertips just a smidge, just to kind of get a little extra depth moving down. Pushing the palms nice and broad over the rectors, using the fingertips to kind of run down the lamina of the rectors here. Good, and you can transition to your thumbs. Once you get to the sacral SI region, do some nice, big, broad thumb circles. We're using the pads of the fingertips here, the thumbs I meant. Nice and broad, alternating. You want to avoid using the tips of the thumbs too early, just because it's too deep too fast. Just gonna spend a little time here. Our complaint was on the right side, so we're just gonna shift some attention here. We're still in the warming phase, so we're not gonna spend too much time, just enough to let my client know that, I'm gonna just focus some extra time here, that's all. Okay. We're gonna do those thumb circles on the way up, nice and broad, synchronize them. Really pushing down, almost like a little strip, then a little curl. So you're kind of stripping and doing thumb circles at the same time. Again, using the pads, not the tips. Keeping it broad. Good. Maybe on the way back down. Back up. Do some in between the shoulder blades. This is yummy for everyone. Spend a little extra time here. My client complained about right shoulder trap pain, so I'm just going to shift some attention here. Same thing. Alternating. Nothing too deep. Nice and broad. Feel a little tension through the rhomboid here. So just make a note of that. So whenever we actually work it deeper, kind of know where to stop. Okay, don't forget about the left. Good. Now this is a little fatiguing, so I don't spend too much time doing this. I kind of notice that my thumbs get a little worn out a little too quickly when I do that. Okay, we're going to shift our attention to the right lower back here. Make sure you do a nice smooth transition. Okay, you want to keep one hand on the body the whole time. And we're just going to switch to some pushing and pulling the right lower back, making sure that we're covering the upper glutes, the QLs, the obliques. Nice and broad, alternating. Good. Mindful of your breath. When your client hears you, that means they're going to take a deep breath too. Do a variety of different strokes here. We're synchronizing our palms, creating nice, big, broad strokes. We're really trying to generate some heat. It should be relatively easy if you're keeping it broad and bold. Okay, switch to the QL region with some pulling. Really reach low towards the abdomen, oblique area. Don't dig your fingertips into their body. That doesn't feel good. You want to use the pads of the hands. Keep that nice and broad. Curl your fingers gently, still pushing with the pads to really get into that QL. You can hold this for 5 to 10 seconds. Go up and down, swirl it, and finish the stroke. Pull the fingers all the way to the spine. Once you feel the spine, stop and press. And you just rinse and repeat that. Notice I'm kind of stacking my hands here just for some extra pressure. Going through the fingertips, transitioning into the palm. Once you get to the edge of the table, curl your fingers, push into the fingertips, into the pads, hold 5-10 seconds. Go back and forth, the little cross fiber, and pull until you get to the spine. Perfect. Finish the section out. We're going to just kind of transition, pushing still into the kind of lumbar region, really warming up this what is it called? The thoracolumbar aponeurosis segment of the lower back here. Going to the mid-thoracics, just kind of pushing through the palm, nothing crazy. Finishing off on top of the glutes here. Push, varying your stroke speed. And since we're working on the right, I like to just throw some strokes in on top of the scapulus here. Curling my fingertips. Really working into those traps. Nice big broad pulls. Notice I'm kind of stacking my hands again here. Primarily using my left. Curling my fingertips under the traps. Really strumming some of that anatomy on the neck. Turning my body and pulling some light traction on the occiput here. Good. And we're going to rinse and repeat a similar sequence on the left hand side. She did complain that she had pain on both sides, but it's primarily the right that gives her more trouble. So we're going to spend a little shorter amount of time, nothing crazy, but similar. Transition nice and smoothly. Again, pushing and pulling, covering the upper glutes, running the fingers through the rib cage, kind of include a little bit of the lat there. And this is just a reminder to make sure that you play with your effleurages. This is not a set sequence. Let your hands kind of go where they want to, riding the contours of the body naturally wherever they are. If you kind of notice a spot that's a little bit more tighter, make a note of it or spend some extra time. Like right here, I did notice that the upper glute, right in the kind of glute medius section, kind of using a little bit more focus pressure. Again, we're still warming, so don't spend too much time, just make a note of it. And when you kind of use a little bit more acute pressure, it kind of signals to your patient that, hey, you found a spot, and it'll be more impressive to them when you return back to that spot. Okay, nice, big, broad strokes, using the entirety of the hand, push into the palm, transition into the pads of the fingers. Okay, we're gonna do a little bit of pulling here, really reach. Okay, you wanna ride the edge of the pelvis with the fingertips. Okay, kind of get close to it, that's the goal. Right, the closer you can get to some of these insertions, the origins, that's where a lot of the magic lives. Okay, same thing, push and pull. I'm going to pull a little bit towards the lat region here, just to kind of keep it interesting and unique. Notice on the way back, I can use my thumb to kind of sneak in a stroke right there, right on the erectors. No wasted strokes here. Okay, we're going to focus a little bit here on the top left and between the shoulder blades being her main complaint. I'm going to kind of pivot here, working from the top to bottom. Nice, big, broad palm. Curl the fingertips, really drive in between the shoulder blades there. This hand, make sure to just kind of work it into the upper trap. And we're going to alternate. So, nice, big, broad pressure, bend the fingertips, grab the trap, give it a nice squeeze, alternate your palms. You're kind of digging the bony landmark of the ulna right against the scapula there. Kind of gives you a little bit extra depth. Drive through the palms, drive through the little bony landmark of the ulna there. Spend a little time on the trap, squeeze the neck, and just alternate between these two positions. Trap, neck, trap, neck. You're not pinching. Whenever you're grabbing, you're kind of using the pads, right? Whenever you curl your fingertips too much, it causes a little too much acute pressure too fast. And keep it broad, almost like slight curl, but you're kind of using like a puppet gesture. Okay, neck, trap, neck, trap. Notice a lot of tension here. I'm gonna just go back and forth, supporting my thumb with the other hand. We're gonna hold this for maybe 5 to 10 seconds. Give it a little shake. And we're just gonna relax this. Okay, nice return stroke. Make sure to glue it all together. Broad with the palms. Spread the fingers. Cover the upper glutes. Return back. Pulling with the thumbs. Get on top of the thumbs. And apply some generous pressure in between the shoulder blades. Take your time here. Hold this for 5 to 10 seconds. And slowly start working your way towards the shoulders. You'll kind of feel the levator scapula just below the trap here. Keep going until you reach the acromion. Finish your stroke. Over the arms, nice and broad. Okay, we're going to return back. Always pulling through the splenius muscles of the neck. Pulling into those insertions. Dig the fingertips into the occiput. Nice. Okay, we're just gonna do some pad dressage here to kind of wrap it all up. I like to kind of drop to one knee, but that's just a preference here. This is just to wrap up the closing phase. The warming phase. Nice and alternating, keeping it broad, smooth, elegant. Trying to keep one hand on the body the entire time. There's no rules, so glide with some elegance. Keep it broad. Vary your speed, alternate back and forth. All that is delicious, so take your time here. Okay, we're gonna start working with some deeper strokes here. Just kind of creating a little C shape with my hands, going back and forth, working the upper length of the traps here. Really driving with that left hand, nice and slow. Switch your thumbs and work your way back. Keep it nice and elegant. Oh man, I found a spot right here. What I like to do is I kind of angle on the way down and then drive up. And I really lock my thumb in, holding this position for 5 to 10 seconds. And when you're done with these positions, nice little thumb circles to release. Okay, we're gonna switch, leave off where we left off, drive the thumb, the entirety of the length of the trap, switch, way back. You can almost see the muscle kind of twitching under my thumb there. Switch. When my thumb is fatiguing and I kind of feel like I can't hold it, I just switch thumbs. Try to get a little bit different angle. Give this one a little bit of a rest. Hold it nice and broad. We're not digging, we're not creating a 90-degree angle with the thumb here. We are using the tip, but more of an obtuse angle more than anything. Rock back and forth to kind of break up some of that adhesions, some of those knots. Hold it. Good. Switching here again. Give my thumb a break. Good. Okay, we're just gonna work our way down the trap here. At this point, I'm gonna stand up. Okay, finish with some traction at the neck. Okay, most of my pressure is on this index finger. This one is just kind of supporting it there on the back. Really pull away. Right at the beginning of the fingertips is where you're starting your stripping. Okay, position yourself down there. Bring the fingers over and drive. Good. Ooh, I felt like a big road bump in there. Might have been able to see it on camera. Hold that position. There it goes again. Finish that. And we're just going to return. Okay. A little bit more advanced. Same thing. Lock in your index. A little bit with the middle. And we're going to strip. You're going to hold this the entire time. And you're almost thinking about peeling it away from each other, right? We're creating that length through just securing the insertion here. And separate. You're going opposite, right? We're pulling. Just like that. Rinse and repeat. Beautiful. Okay. Whenever you're stripping, we're not fully extending the thumb. You are creating some flexion. Okay. That flexion is loading the muscles and not the structure. Pull apart. Good. Right around this section, kind of now leaving the upper trap, I kind of switch to both. I get as close as I can to the spine, really driving both thumbs, and make sure you're traversing all the way towards the edge of the scapula and pausing. Okay, hold this for 5 to 10 seconds and a little bit of thumb circles to release. Okay, rinse and repeat. Okay, those lines your thumbs leave on the body, you can almost see them right there. The right thumb and the left thumb are kind of creating these kind of white lines on the body. Whenever you move down, you're just going down. So the right thumb starts where the right thumb started. I don't even know what I'm trying to say. You're just switching over. You're just kind of jumping over it. That's what I'm trying to say. You can see the muscles twitching right through here. If you really focus your eyes, you might be able to see it through the camera. There we go. Good, running down between the shoulder blades. You feel all the layering of the anatomy here. You'll feel a lot of the rhomboids, the traps, the mid fibers of the traps. We're going to way towards the lower fibers. Right in this kind of general section. Once you're off the anatomy, the rib cage is kind of exposed right there. So you don't want to really push into that. So you want to soften the stripping. Working your way if you want. You can switch the pads and finish that off against the scapulas there. Same thing, you feel the erector, the lower fibers of the trap, start to feel the rib cage, transition to the pads, hit the edge of the scapula, boom, money. Beautiful. Okay, we're going to work our way up, but we're going to work our way up with some cross fiber. What I like to do is I use my middle fingers, and then I use my index fingers, and I kind of create a little bend. If I push really hard and lift my fingers, you can see where I leave all the indentions on the body there. And what I want to do is with about 6 points of contact, you're just stripping. You are doing some cross fiber. Back and forth, you're strumming the erector muscles. Back and forth, nice and broad. If you want a little bit more acute pressure, switch to 4. Use these 4 fingers. Some circles for some variety. Good. Back and forth. You really feel all the layers of the anatomy here. So you feel like it's really stringy, really fibrous. Spend some extra time here. Okay, I kind of notice it really locked up there. I'm going to switch back to my thumbs. Hold a little bit of trigger point. My fingertips of my thumbs. Good. Perfect. Okay, we're just going to return back to home base. Same thing. We always glue all of the different segments with a nice big broad effleurage. The neck and the traps are the home base. Throwing some extra strokes here anytime you get a chance. Pull some traction. Okay, let's work on the right shoulder now. Okay, we do have some intentions on returning back to that left shoulder, her original complaint, but we're going to give it a little bit of a break. It's not that she has zero pain on the right, but it's the one she doesn't notice or reports too much discomfort or pain. So we are still going to address it, making sure that we are feeling carefully. You might not generally feel like there's a lot more tension in here, but there might be little segments of the tissue that are a little bit more blocked up or tight. So just pay close attention. Same as before, strip the whole length of the trap, switch where your thumb left off, and bring it back. under the trap. Really drive it up. Get low. Then go up. Sometimes when I feel like I'm not getting adequate leverage, kind of put my knee on my elbow here, and then I use my knee to kind of drive up my elbow. Kind of notice how much I'm able to like pick up the scapula, shoulder here. You kind of see all this tissue lengthening and lifting a little bit. That's all really, really yummy. Good, and we're gonna switch and drive all the way across, traversing the whole trap. If you really want to get as close as possible to some of those insertions and origins and not hit the bony landmarks, switch to the pad to finish a stroke out. Okay, return back with the fingertips. Pull some of that traction. I'm gonna use my left hand here to pull apart this tissue. Okay, a little awkward on the knee, so I'm gonna stand up and rinse and repeat that. Okay, really lock in those fingers. Use the thumb, really separate that tissue. Good. Switch hands here. Okay, I'm gonna hold it. Okay, really pull it apart. Try to figure out which hold is better for you. Do you want to use the right hand and then strip with the left, or use the left and strip with the right? It's completely up to you, depending on your body position around the tables where you're gonna, explore and find your leverage. I think, height and strength and all that it's gonna vary to each individual. I'm gonna hold this for 5 to 10 seconds here. Okay, and release. Nice, elegant stroke back. Finish over the scaps. Do a couple pulling on the neck. And we're going to drive with both thumbs, stripping diagonally, moving across those lower fibers of the upper traps. You're kind of getting into the levator scapular region, right at the superior angle of the scapula, its origin. Spend some time here. Go back and forth. Notice that I'm not doing the same thing on both sides. You do have different things happening on each side. So, don't feel like you always have to be completely symmetrical in your sessions. Okay, just gonna work my way down for the rhomboids. Good. Feel a tight spot, stop, hold it, 5-10 seconds. Nice little circles on the way out. Rinse and repeat. Really strum the longissimus here. You can really feel it. Okay, this is the edge of the rib cage here, so we're just going to switch to the pads, finish a stroke out, the edge of the scapula. Good. Some nice little flowy strokes. And then we're going to transition to the cross fiber again. Same thing. 6 points of contact, index, middle, ring finger. Nice gentle bend on all of them. This one tends to go straight, and then I kind of bend the other two, but it's kind of up to you. If you press hard enough, you can see those indentions. 6 points of contact, nice and broad. I'm really getting into that lamina of the spine and the longissimus here. If you really strum closely, you can feel the spinalis there. It's obvious on some people, but Yeah, I can feel hers. Okay, once you lock into that, back and forth, creating kind of like a jostling effect with her body. Okay, I'm not traversing the longissimus. I'm kind of staying in that little nook in there. That's where the spinalis lives. That's the really, really tasty stuff in there. Okay, nice back and forth. Kind of losing it here. It's getting to the edge of the rhomboid. Then I could start doing more broader cross fiber, dressing all that rhomboid, mid-trap fibers. It's all bouncy in there. Good. Okay, some vertical. Same thing in that lamina. Going down into the thoracics a bit. And we're going to return back to the top. Good. Okay, we're going to do some deep tissue strokes here on the left side. Finishing off. Some traction as usual. Okay, I like to start off on one knee. Palpate where you're going to drive with the forearm first. Okay, I'm using my left elbow. I like to get really low here. Kind of get into a nice big wide lunge where I can kind of pivot. Okay, I'm driving the blade of the forearm here all the way to the elbow. So I'm starting off with a kind of like a knife. I'm driving up, really making contact with the blade and working my way all the way down until I reach the acromion. Once I really lock this in, I switch knees and then I drive into it. You can probably start off like this, but whatever floats your boat. Really hold this position. Notice my wrist is nice and relaxed. That's what you want. Because if not, you kind of lock this in, you flex all the anatomy on the forearm, and you kind of fatigue quickly. Okay, you're really driving with the core here, so squeeze the abs gently. Use my hand to support. My elbow does feel a little bit dry. I do prefer that because I can really lock into position. If you really notice, I pull the whole shoulder up with me. Notice that it's like maybe an inch worth of travel, an inch and a half worth of travel. That's what you want. That's how you know it's being productive. Take your time here. You can check in with your patient to see if they're tolerating the pressure well. She's really experienced, so I know what she can and cannot experience. Once you feel like you're making a little bit of progress, just let the natural glide of the body release the pressure. And it's not abrupt, it's nice and slow. Once you feel like you're really getting off the upper traps, you can start to stand up here and create a nice big broad pressure down through the rhomboids. Okay, I'm not using the tip of the acromion, not the tip of the elbow. I'm using maybe an inch to an inch and a half below that. So a little bit more in the blade region right here, not here. Hold for 5 to 10 seconds if you find a stubborn spot. I sometimes turn my arm maybe like 30, 40 degrees. It just gives me a little bit more leverage. I notice that it kind of fits the contours of the scapula a little bit more. Did find a little trigger point here. So all I'm doing is I'm going back and forth and traveling maybe an inch across the rhomboid. Taking it nice and slow. Resetting once I kind of reach the end. I'm strumming it here. And at this point, I am using a little bit more of the tip of the elbow on purpose. Okay, when you are using the tip, you are delivering more acute pressure. So dial it back just a smidge. It's just as productive. Okay, that's enough. I'm going to soften that angle on the elbow and work our way down the back. Working the whole length of the longissimus here. I notice that if I glue the edge of my fingers along the edge of the hip, it secures my position a little bit more. Just let it naturally ride the contours of the body. Once I start getting towards the pelvis, I create a 90-degree bend in the elbow, really internally rotating my shoulder, getting nice and low, and driving into that SI joint. Sometimes I like to kind of support this hand and just help it along a little bit more where I feel stuck. Okay, I'm not pushing the acromion along the edge of the bony landmark. Kind of keeping it a little bit more on the blade's edge, a little bit more of the muscle belly of the forearm flexors here. Okay, readjust, and you're going to cut across towards the QL. Okay, we're driving towards the table, so we're going straight down here. Palm up, grip, and just take it nice and slow. Good. And gently lift, drag the elbow back. I like to really anchor right of the connections of the rhomboid and the lower traps. Clamp your hands and drive some strong pressure towards the body. If you can remember, your pressure wants to go through the body, not glide over the body. And that's the game changer because it feels very intense and broad. That's what you want. Not using the apex of the elbow here. Keeping it just 1 inch to 2 inches below the acromion. Okay. I'm going to run the length of the blade of the forearm. Finish off with the palm. Elegantly finish with the other hand across the scaps. And rinse and repeat. We'll do that one more time. We'll take our time. Sometimes what I like to do is grab a little bit of like a towel, paper towel, whatever you got, and wipe off some of the lubricant first. And that kind of creates a little bit more tack or gives you a little bit more grip. I'm just going to rest that there. Same thing. Palpate to kind of see where to start. Be clear. You want to get nice and low so you can lunge. Start with the fingertips. Cut across with the pinky. Drive with the whole blade of the forearm. You want to get it 1 to 2 inches right below the pointy part of the elbow. To feel that locking in, I like to switch and drive. You're lifting the shoulder off the table. Sometimes this gives you a slightly different pressure if you just kind of let the arm hang off there. Push it and just kind of rotate it if you need to. Readjust and just like that, let that get long. Kind of pulling across here, kind of pulling it apart if you will. Not really gripping, but just a slight rotation of the humerus here is really tasty. Okay, once you feel like it's starting to release naturally, we're not forcing anything here, we're really taking our time. You're gonna start standing, keep your arm nice and straight. Boom, nice clean pivot. Start to angle the fingertips towards the hip there. Once you get close enough to make contact with it, do it because it keeps you nice in a straight line. If you kind of keep your arm parallel to the spine, you notice it's a little too hard to stay on the longissimus, the kind of tubular, anatomy here on the erectors. So that's why it's kind of important to kind of shift towards the hip. Good. I can feel her taking a nice big breath. That's a non-verbal cue that she feels what I am doing. It's really important to tune into that stuff. Getting into the thoracics here. I'm starting to make contact with the hip. Nice and gentle. Drive down. Beautiful. Okay, really start internally rotating the arm. Get low. We're not using the tip of the elbow. We're using the blade part of the forearm. Pull this down a little bit just so y'all can see it. Okay, get nice and low. Drive into the SI joint. We are slightly traversing over the pelvis here, but not by much. Okay, make your way back. Readjust. Start with the whole blade. If you want, you can fully reset. Start with the pinky. Go into the blade. Drop into the elbow. Turn your palm up. Clamp it. And just take your sweet, sweet time. Okay, a little bit more acute, so I'm bending it, creating an acute angle with the elbow. Should be tender. Feel it's a little stubborn spot. We're just gonna release it. Good. Make your way back. Elegant as always. Okay, once you should feel where the rhomboid and the trap really merge. You'll be able to anchor into that. Once you find that, turn the wrist, clamp it, and drive. You're going straight down into the table. So it makes it really, really, really deep. Good. You watch your body rise and drop. Those are big breaths. Good indicators that she feels what you're doing. And she's right about her limit. Take it nice and slow. Drive to the blade. Palm will return the hand. Finish the stroke at the trap. Neck. Boom. That was awesome. Felt good, felt confident. Okay. We're going to spend a little extra time on that kind of right hip here. We're going to do the same deep tissue strokes, starting at the traps, working our way down, traversing over the QL region of the right hip. Same thing. Get nice and low. We're going to start off with some palpations first to figure out where we need to start. Okay, we're going to really lock this in. You don't want to be aligned with the head. You want to be off to the side a little bit more. Okay, your shoulder and her shoulder should be same alignment. Okay, we're going to start off with the blade, the pinky, drive up. Blade of the palm, blade of the forearm. Keep driving. It is a little dry. We want that. If you feel like it's sticking, just hold it a little bit more. Okay, lock in under it. And we're driving up. Okay, notice I'm kind of creating a little bit more of an acute angle with the elbow. And I'm pulling up. Okay, you should watch this whole thing lift. If that whole thing is lift, then you're doing it right. Breathe. Play around, rock back and forth a little bit. Okay, lock it in and pull. Okay, we're gonna pivot like a fulcrum. Nice and smooth to the top. Soft wrist. Nice big breaths. Okay, it's feeling a little dry for me. We're not trying to drag the skin. So if you feel like you need to apply a little lubricant, this is a good time to do so. I'm gonna let this go nice and smooth. Keeping one hand on the body. Kept it on the floor. Okay, the smallest amount. Okay, what I like to do is rub it in the areas I'm not really working, and then the area I'm going to work. So I get the majority of the lotion and oil off, and I leave just a residual in the area because I don't want it slippery. I just want a little bit of glide. Hey, it's your choice if you want to reset the stroke or not. I'm just gonna pick up where I left off here. Same thing. Oh, that's perfect. Okay, nice and chill wrist. Hold for 5-10 seconds. Little pro tip, if you want to take a deep breath on your exhale, make sure you turn away from your patient. You don't want to breathe on them. You don't want your breath or you don't want to accidentally spit on them. So it happens, but just try to remember when you take a deep breath in, slightly off the table. A little stubborn spot, create an acute angle. Hold that for 5-10 seconds. You can even do a little cross fiber with the elbow. Back into the obtuse angle. As soon as you can make contact with that right hip, do so. Kind of keeps the elbow locked in. Good. Okay, we're reaching the lumbar region. Pivot around 9 degrees in the elbow. Internally rotate the shoulder and drive the blade into the lumbar region. You almost want to think about this like a decompression almost, okay? If you got the balance and you got the core strength, use your other hand and pull a little bit of traction, really separating that fascia there. This is a game changer. It doesn't have to be much, just nice and subtle. Hold that for 5-10 seconds. Cool, bring it back, just a smidge. We're driving with the blade through the pinky, through the palm, through the forearm. Not making contact with the spine and driving across the QL region. Remember, this is her problem area. So take your time here. We'll do an extra deep tissue stroke in this area. Once you kind of feel like you're kind of falling off the QL, reset, reset. You don't have to go all the way down to the table. Need a little bit more room for my hands. I'm going to swing your arm off the table here. Perfect. Notice I kind of turn my palm down. You can press like this for some stability. You can turn it up. Use your other hand for support. Completely up to you. Good. Pull a little bit of traction in the opposite direction. Good. We're going to do that one more time. Going all the way up. Nice big effleurage running down the body. Once I hit that the pelvis, just pivot, turn, use the blade, make it into the forearm, get towards the elbow, I'm gonna turn and support my other hand here. Oh, that's yummy. Good. Okay. Make our way back. Like I taught you. Nice and broad. This is not deep. This is not deep. This is just a return stroke. But once you feel like you're locking in to that area of the lower trap, kind of creates a little triangle along the scapula there. Once you find that little triangular piece right here, that's where you're locking into. You're gonna lock in there. Nice and broad. You're pulling back. Supinate the arm. Lock your hands together. And nice and smooth. If you feel like your patient's holding their breath, you can always remind them to take a deep breath. Because when they do that, on the exhale, you're really driving some extra pressure. There we are. Sometimes, if you give them a little tap, that's an indicator to breathe, but make sure you tell them that. Because they're not doing like, why do you keep tapping me for? So, nice gentle tap. I'll take a deep breath. You lock in your position a little bit more. Yummy, yummy, yummy. Okay. We're going to throw in some deep ironing into that right hip there. So we're going to reposition ourselves. Nice big effleurages to glue everything together. Finish at the neck. Focus on the right hand side here. Nice and smooth transitions as per usual. Okay. I want you to just plant a fist right in that SI region. Okay, the top of the thumb is on top of the pelvis. That's where you're going to lock in your position. Once you do that, hold this for maybe, 5-10 seconds. Okay, and then you're going to work your way on the side of the table and finish out the stroke. Okay, we're just riding the edge of the pelvis here. You're primarily driving with the index knuckle and the middle knuckle. Once you get to the end, you want to soften the grip. You don't want to pinch their skin on the table. Okay, once you get to the end, switch to the other side. Internally rotate. You're putting pressure on the first two knuckles. Thumb straight. Same thing, riding the edge of the crest of the pelvis there. Really drive nice broad pressure. Switching sides, thumb down, riding the crest of the pelvis per usual. Really driving that pressure in the first two knuckles. You're kind of hitting all of the anatomy above the pelvis. The left hand is hitting all the anatomy below the rib cage. So you're kind of riding the edge of the pelvis here, and then you're riding the edge of the rib cage there. Okay, so that's what you're doing, but you're alternating between each one. Switching sides. Okay, notice that I turn my wrist kind of like a corkscrew. That's kind of the game changer there. You're riding the natural contours of the body. That is what makes it feel smooth and delightful. Do not put pressure on the rib cage. Do not put pressure on top of the pelvis. That does not feel good. Okay. Once you feel like you kind of address the anatomy glued against the pelvis, you can kind of shift some of the tension below the rib cage. Okay, so instead of locking in the finger on top of the pelvis, you're locking in the thumb below the rib cage. Same thing, driving that pressure through those first two knuckles. I'm kind of getting over the table here a little bit. I'm not really pushing into the body. I'm pushing like through the body. Good. Rinse and repeat that. Oh man, this feels so good. Okay. When someone reports lower back pain, you are doing them a disservice by not working on the upper glutes. Okay. Depending on their lifestyle and depending on the type of work they have is where they're typically going to report their pain. So with that being said, the top right hip, we need to focus a lot of attention on. So what we're gonna do here is just kind of peel back the drape. What I like to do is kind of pin it here at the sacrum and pull it back, kind of creating a nice taut line, exposing the upper glute here. Okay, you can kind of tuck it in a smidge here as well to kind of lock that in place. This is the area we really need to focus on. We need to find the top of the hip, and then from there down that angle. Avoid going under the sheet, so make sure that you're kind of riding the edge of the sheet there. Not too much oil. When I over lubricate, I kind of cup my hand and just put the edge of my fingers to lubricate. That's usually enough. If you don't have that rag around, if you don't have that rag, I just kind of wipe my hands on the table. It usually does the trick, but whatever you got. Okay, we're gonna do some ironing across the upper glutes. Okay, same thing. Start off with the edge. This time we're gonna go below the pelvis. Okay, you're gonna find a sacrum, get to the edge of that sacrum. Once you find that, you are driving down. Okay, nice, straight, tall, long body. Squeeze the trunk of your body, hold this position, drive away from it. You're going towards the hip, going towards the greater trochanter. That's the game changer. Boom, that's money. Perfect. Good, you can use both palms, fists. You do it in an alternating fashion. Good, nice and broad. Exactly like that. Now we're gonna get towards more of the lateral side of the hip. The way I like to do that is by dropping down to one knee. We're kind of using the same kind of position, but instead of kind of driving, you're kind of anchoring down, you're punching the hip up, locking that in, driving your entirety of your body weight into it, and then working down towards the greater trochanter. It's like stripping with your fist. Okay, you're not squeezing the fist. It's a nice soft one, so it kind of looks a little bit more like this versus like this. Okay, same thing. Anchor, drive your body into it. That is yummy. Rinse and repeat. Okay, I'm gonna stand up, hit the mid fibers, hit those top fibers. Good. Okay. Another thing you can do is lock in your thumb, squeeze your thumb, kind of like a throttle on a motorcycle. Nice soft fist. The bottom fist, the one closest to the hips, is gonna go directly below the pelvis. So the crest is right here. You're gonna go below the pelvis. You're gonna grab your thumb like a throttle, and then these two knuckles are gonna go in the QL region. You can drive both in a nice, steady fashion. Seems a little over lubricated here, so I'm gonna wipe a little bit off. Just gonna use this towel that I have laying around. Try to avoid doing this. I don't like doing it, but you gotta do it sometimes. You can just use the sheet too. Something like this probably works just fine too. Adjust that. Bottom fist, grab your thumb like a throttle. Right fist in the QL region. Nice and broad. Oh, see, that's really good contact. Okay, nice and broad. We're driving down and just letting gravity do its thing. Perfect. Cool. Okay, we're wrapped up here in the lower back. We're gonna make our way up. Some smooth transitional effleurages on the way up. Just gonna bring up the arm here. Notice that I'm just kind of keeping contact, trying to keep everything as smooth as possible. I'm gonna get to the head of the table, and then we're gonna turn around. We're gonna work on the neck a little bit, and then we'll wrap it up. Just kind of visually inspecting here, your left shoulder does kind of just live a little higher up than your right here.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna primarily focus on the left shoulder, trap, neck area. I'm gonna start off with some general petrissage here, nothing too crazy, everything's still nice and warm, feels warm. I'm gonna primarily focus on some active release techniques, some pin stretching, some static holds. Okay, I'm gonna cradle the head, pinning both my hands right behind the occiput. Primarily driving with my index and middle fingers on both sides. We're creating a little bit of traction, so I'm pulling up. And then what I'm doing with my left hand is I'm gonna pour it into my right, creating a nice, big, lengthening stretch. We're trying to bring the chin towards the collarbone. This hand at the bottom is still pulling on the neck. Hold for 5 seconds. Nice and slow back. Couple petrissages in between. Keep it nice and fluid. Pull some traction. Creating a C shape over the ears. Pour the left hand into the right, creating a nice big stretch. We're not just turning the head. What you're doing with this hand is you're pulling up and turning. So we're pulling traction at the same time. Beautiful. And right back. Couple petrissages. Pulling some traction. Pour into the right hand. And I kind of tilt my trunk of my body too. I'm not letting my arms do all the work. I'm letting my body do some of it as well. I'm going to slide my hand out from the bottom and just let it rest on the table. Bring my right hand up and over and lock in my index and middle fingers right in that occiput, right in the splenius muscles. You can pull some of that traction, really lock in that position right behind the mastoid. Use the left palm to drive down and really create a nice, big, beautiful stretch. You can see the striations here of some of the scalene muscles really pulling. That's how you know you're doing it right. Hold for 5 to 10 seconds. Release. Do some pulling over the neck. Kind of positioning my whole body over here towards the left corner of the table here. Using my whole palm, fingertips, really turning the head. If you want a little bit of extra range of motion, just press that right shoulder and the left shoulder down and turn. Beautiful. Okay, we're gonna hold that again. It is a little slippery, so I'm gonna have a rag right here. Dry this off, dry that off a little bit. Just give me a little better anchor. Using the right hand, locking in right behind the mastoid. Using the left to push down the shoulder. You're pushing the scapula down away from the body. Creating those striations and scalenes. Hold for 5 to 10 seconds. Nice big pulling patterns. Okay, we're gonna lock in the left hand here, right behind the mastoid. You're driving the thumb into the spine gently. Okay, with the other hand, we're rotating the head. Good. You're pouring into the left hand. Slide the hand from under the head and rest it. See how smooth that was? That's what we want. Okay, handling the head with care. A little bit of petrissage. Really digging those tips of the thumbs down into those upper traps. Kind of getting under it a little bit. Good, and pulling back, creating some traction, a little bit of extension, drive the fingertips up, 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 soften them if it's too much, straighten the head out, and we're gonna do the same thing on the right hand side. A little bit lesser, it's not our primary concern, but we'll check it out. We'll go from there. Okay, pulling that same traction, using the index and middle fingers, the same as before. This time we're gonna do it towards the left. You don't wanna squish the ear or fold the ear. This happens a lot. Kind of wanna create that C shape over the ear. Okay, pouring the head into the left hand, pulling traction, bringing the chin towards the collarbone, tilting your trunk of your body. Hold this position for 5 to 10 seconds. Pulling up, decompressing the cervical spine while rotating it. And bring it back nice and slowly. Always want to handle the head with care. Little bit of extension. Always sneak in some strokes in between some of the pin and stretches. Keeps it classy. Pull some traction on both sides. Don't squish the ear. And pour. See, this side feels pretty good. Does it feel tight to you still?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Good. Kind of watching some small adjustments here. Kind of extending the head back and letting it just kind of fall over. Just like that. Slide the hand from under. Some overhand pulling. You can drop the left shoulder here. Really create some head flexion. If you grab the back of the neck, use the forearm to bring the neck down into flexion. This is a nice, big, beautiful stretch. Can hold this position here. I'm mostly just using my forearm, but the head is just for stability. Nice. Pulling patterns. Lock in the left hand using the middle finger and the index. Drive the shoulder down, creating a nice big static stretch. You should see the striations of the scalenes here on the neck. That's how you know you're doing it right. Pull back, keep it cool, keep it classy. I'm gonna wipe a little lubricant off. Get a little slippery. Good. Awesome. Same thing. You want to lock in that thumb right next to the spine, right under the occiput. You're going to extend the neck into the thumb and then gently start to rotate it. You see how deep that thumb is getting naturally just by rotating the neck. Create a little bit of traction with both hands. I'm going to cup the neck, really driving with the middle finger. This is done one-handed. This hand is just supporting the other hand. On the left side of the neck, I'm driving with the middle finger. The right side, I'm just letting the palm really drive the decompression. Pull away. Then we're going to switch. Use the left hand. Middle finger really locks in behind the mastoid. Let the other side just drive through the palm of the hand. Back up. This one's just going to support, going under, pulling away, decompressing the cervical spine. Little bit of flexion. Good. Using just the pads of the thumbs, link the two middle fingers together and gently lift the neck. Let it just drape over into extension. Finish the stroke out, going towards the SEM. I want you to ride the ridge of the jawline. Work your way to the jaw muscles. Squeeze the earlobes for good luck. And return the head back to neutral. A little resting stroke here at the end. Giving some good vibes. Good energy. I really try to feel my heartbeat through my hands. A little head hug. Alrighty.